Welcome to Hidden Ties, where every story hides a deeper truth. I walked into my porch that day, expecting a quiet evening, until I saw her standing there, my mother, with her hands outstretched, demanding money for her new kid's college. Just when I thought I'd moved on from the pain, she hit me with a bombshell. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'd love to know. I used to think the hardest thing in my life was watching my mom throw me out at 16. That was supposed to be the worst moment, right? But life had a way of making me understand that some things hurt more than others. Way more. The day I left home is burned into my memory like it was yesterday. I was sitting in the kitchen, staring at the clock. Mom was in the living room, probably watching TV like she always did. Everything was just another normal evening until she walked into the kitchen. She wasn't smiling like usual. There was no warmth in her eyes, just that cold, lifeless look that somehow had become routine. "Get your stuff. You're leaving tonight," she said flatly. I froze. "What do you mean, leave?" "Mom, I'm 16. Where am I supposed to go?" She didn't flinch, didn't even blink. "I don't care. I can't take care of you anymore. I've got a new family now." That was it. No more words, no apology, no explanation, just a cold sentence and the sound of her voice cutting me off completely. I had never felt so small, so disposable. I don't even think I packed a bag. I just grabbed a jacket and walked out the door, leaving behind the woman who I thought would always protect me. I spent the next couple of years living in the streets, moving from one couch to another, barely scraping by. I worked odd jobs, always making sure to keep my head down, never complaining about the hand life had dealt me. It was in those years, with nothing but my own will to get through it, that I learned the real meaning of survival. Fast forward a few years. I finally hit it big. I'd worked my tail off, barely sleeping, barely eating, and built up a small business from nothing. Slowly, I became someone people respected. Slowly, I became someone who could afford a big house, a fancy car, and things I'd only dreamed of. But the scars, the ones that stayed hidden, they were always there. And when they resurfaced, it was like a nightmare that never ended. It was one of those days where everything was going right. I had just closed a huge deal for the company, the sun was setting in the distance, and I was relaxing in my home, sipping on a glass of wine, feeling on top of the world. My life, for the most part, was mine. I'd earned every bit of it. But that evening, the knock at the door would change everything. It was a little after 7 p.m. when the doorbell rang. I didn't think anything of it at first. I got up from the couch and walked toward the door, expecting to find a delivery or maybe even a neighbor. I opened the door, and there she was. My mom, standing in front of me, a nervous look on her face. I stared at her for a second before the flood of memories hit me like a slap to the face. That cold, emotionless look from years ago, the same one she'd given me when she kicked me out, came rushing back. "Hey, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It felt strange to call her that after everything. My chest tightened, but I couldn't show weakness. Her eyes darted around nervously. "Can we talk?" "Talk?" I repeated, incredulous. "You want to talk? After everything you did? After you kicked me out with nothing, left me to fend for myself?" My voice was louder than I expected, but I couldn't help it. I was boiling inside, and no matter how much I tried to suppress it, the anger came rushing out like a dam breaking open. "What do you want now?" She took a breath, then spoke with the kind of cold, calculated tone I'd always dreaded hearing from her. "I need help." "Help?" I let out a dry laugh, disbelief washing over me. "What kind of help could you possibly need from me? After everything, now you think I'm just going to hand over whatever you want?" Her eyes flickered, but she stood her ground. "I need money for the kids' college tuition, your brothers and sisters. They've got their dreams, and I've promised to help them get there. But I'm short, and you're doing well. You owe it to them, to me, to your family." I couldn't breathe. I stared at her, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "You've got to be kidding me. You threw me out like trash when I was a kid, when I needed you the most, And now you expect me to pay for their college? Why should I do anything for you? For them? She took a step closer, her voice softer now, more pleading. They need a future, just like you did. Don't you think they deserve the chance you got? Don't you think I deserve to make up for the things I did wrong? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The nerve of her, the audacity. And yet, as much as I wanted to slam the door in her face, something about the way she said deserve twisted something in me. I wasn't sure if it was pity or frustration or just a deeper anger I hadn't dealt with. I stood there for a long moment, eyes locked on hers. You think you can just come back into my life after all these years and make demands like everything is fine? No, that's not how this works. I started to close the door, but before I could fully shut it, she said, I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to be the bigger person. That hit me like a punch. The bigger person? After all she'd done, she still had the audacity to say that? My fingers tightened around the doorknob. I don't need to be the bigger person. I've spent my whole life being the person no one cared about. Now, I'm done playing nice. I slammed the door shut, the finality of it sinking in. But as I walked away from the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wouldn't be the end of it. I'd already been through too much, seen too much, to let her waltz back into my life. But something told me that whatever was coming next would be worse than anything I'd faced before. The next couple of days dragged on. I was trying to focus on work, trying to forget what happened on that porch, but no matter how hard I tried, my mind kept going back to that conversation. She had asked me for money, money I had earned, money I worked for, and money I'd sworn I'd never give her. But it was more than that, wasn't it? It was about her coming back into my life like nothing had happened, like all the years she abandoned me were just a bad memory she could erase. I'd been through hell and back to get where I was, and there was no way in hell I was going to let her try to manipulate me into fixing her mistakes. And yet, a part of me couldn't ignore that nagging voice, the one that asked, what if she's right? I tried to push the thought away, but I couldn't. I needed to move on, to let go. But the phone call I received the following day was a game changer. It was late afternoon when the number flashed on my screen. Unknown caller. I hesitated before answering. Hello? I said, trying to sound uninterested, but my heart was racing. Something told me this wouldn't be just another sales call. Is this Rachel? The voice asked. It was a woman's voice, unfamiliar but strangely familiar, like I'd heard it before. Yes, who's this? I asked, narrowing my eyes. It felt like something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. The voice hesitated for a moment before continuing. It's Maria, your sister. I'm calling because, well, I don't really know how to say this, but Mom, she's in the hospital. It's serious. My breath hitched in my throat. Hospital? What happened? Another long pause. She collapsed at work. They think it might be a stroke. The doctors are saying they can't do much for her. It's bad, Rachel. I felt the world shift beneath me. For a second, I didn't know what to say. I didn't care. Or at least I thought I didn't. But hearing it from Maria, the little girl I used to protect when I was still living at home, brought a sharp edge to the anger I'd been holding on to for years. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice shaking. Because I don't know who else to turn to, Maria said, almost pleading. She asked for you. She needs you. Please, Rachel. I stood there in silence, the phone heavy in my hand. You're asking me to go to the hospital and sit by her side, after everything she did? You know what she did to me, right? Maria didn't answer right away. She knew the truth. We all did. But then she said in a soft voice, I don't know what happened, but I don't want to lose her. I don't think I can handle it if we don't try. Can you at least think about it? I hung up without saying another word. My head was spinning. I didn't know what to think, let alone what to do. The rest of the night, I paced my house, the decision weighing heavily on me. The thought of going to the hospital, of facing my mom after all this time, sent waves of anger and resentment through me. But the idea of just leaving her to fend for herself, it didn't sit well with me either. I could hear her voice, the one that always tried to manipulate me, the one that had taught me to distrust everything she said. But still, something inside me wanted to show up. Maybe it was because I wasn't sure I could live with myself if I didn't. Maybe it was because, deep down, despite everything, a part of me still longed for some kind of closure. By the time morning came, I had made up my mind. I would go. I would face her one last time. This time, not as the little girl she'd thrown away, but as a woman who had built a life without her. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and despair, a stark contrast to the luxurious life I had built for myself. The moment I stepped into the waiting room, a cold chill ran down my spine. It was too quiet, too heavy. The air felt thick with tension, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a scene I wasn't supposed to be part of. I spotted Maria sitting in the corner, her face buried in her hands. She was crying, but it wasn't the loud, frantic sobs I expected. Instead, it was a quiet, almost defeated kind of crying, the kind of crying that comes from having your heart shattered and slowly pieced back together, only for it to break all over again. She looked up as I approached. Her eyes widened in surprise, then softened. "Rachel, you came." "I'm here," I said, my voice flat, almost robotic. "Now, where is she?" Maria wiped her eyes, then stood up slowly. "She's in ICU. They're doing everything they can, but, well, you know how it is. You should probably see her." I nodded, though my insides churned. Part of me wanted to turn around and leave, but I couldn't. No matter how much she'd hurt me, no matter how much I hated her, I still had to face the woman who was my mother. The woman who'd thrown me out like garbage and then forgotten about me. The woman who had a new life and a new family, but still wanted something from me now that I was successful. But this was different. This was real. She was lying in a hospital bed, and all of the anger I had for her couldn't change the fact that she was still my mother. Maria led me down the sterile hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, until we reached a small, isolated room. The door was cracked open, and I could see my mother lying in the bed, unconscious, connected to various machines. Her once vibrant face was now pale and sunken, and the usual sharpness in her features was gone. There was just emptiness. I stood in the doorway for a moment, my hands gripping the frame as if it could somehow anchor me to reality. I had never imagined seeing her like this, helpless, frail. It was like she wasn't the woman who had thrown me out all those years ago, but instead a ghost of the person I used to know. Maria stepped forward, her voice trembling. "I don't know if she'll wake up, Rachel, but I think she's been asking for you." I didn't know how to react. Should I feel pity, anger, or maybe relief? For the first time in my life, I was standing there with no clear emotion to guide me. I was numb. I walked to the side of her bed, looking down at her face. My mom, who had once been so strong, so manipulative, was now lying there, vulnerable. It should have made me feel something, but all I could think about was how she had left me when I needed her the most, how she had chosen her new family over me, how she had pretended I didn't exist. "Mom," I whispered, but the word felt foreign on my tongue. It didn't feel like I was speaking to her. It felt like I was speaking to someone else entirely. "Do you even remember me?" There was no answer, just the rhythmic beep of the machines. I stayed there for what felt like hours, staring at her. Part of me wanted to scream, to demand answers, to make her feel the same way I had felt all those years. But another part of me, one I hated, was still that little girl who needed her mom. Still searching for approval, still yearning for love that I'd never gotten. I hated that part of me, but it was there. It always would be. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I turned to leave. As I stepped back out into the hallway, Maria was standing there waiting for me. "You okay?" she asked softly. I nodded, though I wasn't sure what okay even meant anymore. Yeah, I'm fine. Just didn't expect her to look like that. Maria took a deep breath and nodded. I didn't either. It's hard to see her like this. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Hard? It's hard for me to even be here right now. After everything, I don't know why I came back. I don't know why I even care. Maria hesitated before speaking again. I think you care because she's still your mom. No matter what she did, she's the only one you've got. And if she's gone, then there's nothing left. You can hate her, but you can't just erase her. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Maria was right, but it didn't make it any easier to face the truth. I had spent so many years telling myself that I was better off without her, that I didn't need her. But standing there, in that cold, sterile hospital, I realized that the damage had already been done. There was no erasing the past, no matter how much I wanted to. And just when I thought I had everything figured out, when I thought I knew exactly how I was going to handle the situation, a nurse came out of the room and stopped us. "Excuse me," she said, her tone serious. "We need to talk. There's been a complication." The nurse's words hit me like a cold wave of panic. "A complication?" I repeated, feeling the ground shift beneath me. My stomach lurched and I took a step back, trying to process what she had said. "Yes, I'm afraid so," the nurse continued, her eyes flickering with sympathy. "Your mother's condition has worsened. We need you to make some decisions. It's important." I felt a cold sweat break out on the back of my neck. Maria, who had been standing beside me, looked like she might collapse. "What do you mean, make decisions?" Her voice trembled, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her jacket. The nurse looked between us, her gaze soft but firm. "Your mother's situation is critical. She's not stable, and the doctors are recommending we start discussing end-of-life care options." I froze. End-of-life care? No, this couldn't be happening. I had just walked in here, thinking I was going to confront her, maybe get some closure. Not this. Maria gasped, her hand going to her mouth. "No, please tell me this isn't happening." I felt like I was drowning. My thoughts spun in every direction, every question hammering my brain, none of them making sense. I had come here to face my mother, to maybe get some answers, but I hadn't expected this. This wasn't closure. This wasn't anything. This was real life, raw, brutal, and unforgiving. The nurse handed us a clipboard with paperwork, her face still calm but somehow more distant now. "The decision needs to be made soon. I know this is a lot, but we need to know if you want us to begin the process of preparing for what's next." I couldn't look at the clipboard. I couldn't look at anything. My mother, the woman who had abandoned me, was on the verge of dying, and here I was, standing in the hallway, feeling more lost than I had ever been in my entire life. The rage I had carried for years, the pain, all of it, none of it mattered now. All that mattered was the fact that I had no idea how to handle this. Maria was still crying, but now it was frantic. She was asking the nurse more questions, but the words were just white noise in my ears. I couldn't focus on anything. The years of hurt, of betrayal, of bitterness, none of it could change what was happening right in front of me. I found myself standing at the door of the ICU room again, staring at my mother. The machines beeped steadily, but her chest barely moved. I was so angry, angry that she had done this to me, angry that she had always chosen others over me, angry that she had never once tried to make up for it. And yet, there was a part of me that wanted to be there, to do something. But what could I do? I stepped into the room, my heart pounding in my chest, my legs shaky under the weight of everything. Maria followed me in quietly, standing near the door, looking unsure of what to do or say. I pulled the chair close to my mother's bedside and sat down. I hadn't sat next to her in so long, years actually. The last time I had been in this position, I was a child, crying for her to love me, for her to take care of me. Now I was the adult, and I was the one who needed to make a decision. I studied her face, so different now from the woman I remembered. the hard edges, the manipulative smile, the way she had discarded me like an old toy. None of it was here anymore. She was just a person, a fragile human being lying in front of me. And for the first time, I felt a pang of something I hadn't expected. I felt pity, and maybe, for the first time, I understood. Maybe it wasn't about what she had done to me. Maybe it wasn't even about the years I had lost. Maybe it was about what she had never had, the ability to love, to be loved, to make things right. And in the end, I realized that this wasn't about me seeking revenge anymore. It wasn't about fixing the past. I didn't want to see her die. I didn't want to let her go without a single word of closure. The anger I had carried for so long had lost its power. I was no longer that 16-year-old girl standing in the kitchen, crushed by the weight of her betrayal. I was different now, stronger, and I had the power to make my own choices. "Mom," I whispered, my voice cracking, "I don't know if you can hear me, but I forgive you. I don't need anything from you anymore, but I want you to know that I'm not going to hate you anymore. I've let that go." For a moment, there was nothing but the soft beeping of the machines and the silence of the room. And then, something happened. My mother's fingers twitched slightly. Her eyelids fluttered, just barely. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Maria gasped from the door, but I stayed focused. "Mom, it's okay. I'm here. It's okay." And then, in that quiet moment, I realized something that hit me harder than anything else that had happened in my life. This was it. This was the final chapter of a story that had been years in the making. The anger, the hurt, the humiliation, everything had been leading up to this moment, and I had a choice. I could let it all go, or I could carry it with me forever. I took a deep breath and made my decision.